Yeah, so I think there's two basic premises to this paper. One is that police are engaged in all sorts of activities that are really fundamentally not policing activities, or where police don't really have a comparative advantage in delivering a particular service. And so for me, this conversation is always primarily about optimizing service delivery rather than cutting costs or doing it sort of more efficiently. It's about providing a better service. The other is a simple premise of liberal democratic theory, which is that liberal democracy is premised on limited intervention in people's lives. And so we need to have an informed discussion about the disproportionate powers that police have, given that they're sort of the long arm of the law, how much policing and how much state intervention we actually want to have, in particular in the aftermath of a situation where many, especially provincial governments, have made significant cuts to welfare systems, and where now police forces are picking up sort of some of the unintended consequences of those cuts, in particular on the mental health side and on some of the quasi-social service side. And so the paper then comes with two, I think, key terms. One is alternative service delivery. So what other mechanisms are out there to deliver a service? And it draws a distinction between three key concepts that are commonly conflated. So those are civilianization, privatization, and contracting. And these are very different mechanisms that I'll explain in a moment. The other umbrella concept is non-core policing. So we need to have a debate about what things do we actually want members in uniform to do, and what are other types of policing functions that we might have police services or other public services or private sector organizations or third sector organizations deliver that are today being delivered by uniformed members, but that are really not a core law enforcement policing function. So this paper is about alternative service delivery, so that is to say issues of civilianization, privatization, and contracting in non-core policing, so areas where we don't need uniformed members delivering a particular service. And so the distinction amongst sort of privatization, civilianization, and contracting is key because people often sort of assume that the moment you talk about non-uniformed members, well, we're going out to the private sector. And that's simply not the case. So we can simply civilianize certain functions. So do we, for instance, really need a uniformed member running the stockroom that hands out everything from socks to firearms or whatnot, for instance? HR services, is a uniformed member really the best positioned to run your HR and your recruitment organization? So these are already areas that some police forces in Canada have moved to civilianize. So these are people who still work for the public sector, they work for the police organization, but now in civilian functions rather than in uniform functions. The advantage is also that this usually saves a little bit of money. Often individuals make about 70% in a civilian position of what a uniform member might make. And so that then means these savings can be redeployed to actually get more members into uniform, so you can actually get a bigger police presence. And so you're actually growing the pie. That means with the same resources, you can now do more than you did before. So we can optimize. You can privatize. The UK, for instance, has gone on a significant spree of privatizing services, a lot of services associated with, for instance, road safety. Or you can contract out, which means you can get a private sector organization to deliver the service, or you can get a private sector organization to deliver this service, but under the umbrella of the law enforcement agency or of a public sector organization. So with sort of clear constraints, clear sort of expectations and whatnot associated with it. So a key objective is to introduce some nuances into what often becomes a rather reductionist and populist conversation that throws very different terms all together in order to demonize any conversation about innovation in policing.